this woman has won I don't know how many Moth Grand Slam, or just Moth Slams, sorry. Have you won a Grand Slam yet?
Not yet.
That's Deidre's fault, right?
Totally.
So, and this story is a phenomenal story, and I've heard it, and I'm very excited to hear it again. So if you could welcome to the stage, Tracy Coursier. I always say it wrong. I'm so French.
When I married my first husband, I did so with a good checklist of good reasons. And don't do that, by the way, because that does not work out as well as I think it's going to. And as I wandered my way through the divorcing process, I started to feel like I was under some kind of curse. It felt like everything was going against me, and I was living on the East Coast, and I talked to this loopy West Coast friend of mine, and she said, what you need is this really good book called The Old Girl's Guide to Spells. And I'm like, oh, no. So I bought it anyway. Because sometimes when the count is down and your back is in the corner, you got to do something different. So I'm reading this book, and one of the things that she stresses is like, listen, maybe you don't believe in magic, but maybe you can think of this as prayer with props, or maybe you can think of this as the power of positive thinking. So I think, okay, crazy West Coast people will try this. So I decided to start small. I really felt like if I just had a new job, then the leaving and the marriage would be a little bit easier. So my dream job at the time was to work at KUOW. And so there's a spell in there for impressing a future higher person, boss person, and it involves, writing in parchment about why you'd be a good person, taking your resume, lighting it on fire, and then taking the ashes of your burnt resume and burying it in a flower pot by the office that you want to work. And again, I know, but I'm in Connecticut, so and then I most of my life is really spent with some weird like etiquette anxiety. I don't know why. I'm not a super waspy person, but then I'm like, what? Should I Federal Express a flower planter there? And then hire a person to take my burnt resume and bury it in the planter that I sent? And then it's always that Law and Order, I can hear like Jerry Orbach and the doink doink, right? KUOW producers found dead. Now what's with this flower planter? A woman from Connecticut Federal Expressed it last week right before she died. So then I decided that did not work, and I got hung up on the logistics of it. So then I was like, well, let's focus on, it was like opening up your heart to what the universe wants for you. And one of the first things you were supposed to do was to get dried marigold blossoms and then soak them in a bathtub and then soak in the tub. And I don't know about here, but I know in Tony, Connecticut, it's really hard to find dried marigold blossoms, really at any time of the year. And again, I've got like the Law and Order. What if I buy them and then my husband dies? And then there's Jerry Orbach again, doink, doink. Well, there's only one person that ordered dried marigold blossoms in Connecticut, and it's the wife of the dead guy. So I skipped the marigold blossoms, but it did say that if you waited until a full moon, and if you worked the spell when you were naked, under a full moon, that would bring the most potency. Again, I was anxious for change. So I get out there, I wait till he's gone, I wait till a full moon. So there's like 8 weeks of planning going on. And I get the little parchment paper, and you're supposed to have like a rusty nail, and then you have a candle, and you engrave your sentiments, and then you sit and you spin, and then you sit in a circle, and then you meditate about what you really want. And so this, at the time, seemed easier than sending KUOW a flower planter with ashes in it. And so I'm out there, and one of the things that this spell promised was that you would receive guidance from your forebears, your ancestors. And I thought, bless you, well, this will be great, because I had this really kooky Uncle Frank who kept saying that he would come back and he would guide me. So I was like, that's fantastic. My Uncle Frank will come back, he'll tell me it's all going to work out, this will be marvelous. So again, I'm a little naked in this old creepy barn under a full moon, and I'm spinning, and I sit down to meditate, and I feel kind of tingly, and I'm thinking that's great, and then I feel kind of extra tingly, and I think, well, that's kind of cool. And then I look down, and there's this giant moth the size of my palm on my pubic hair. instinct was to swish it. But then, what if it's my Uncle Frank? Then I'd be squishing my dead Uncle Frank, but he's already dead. And what's the etiquette on that? Then I'm also afraid, do moth have teeth? I don't know. But what if it bites me there, and then I die naked in a barn, while my soon-to-be ex-husband is somewhere in Europe, and he, So I run screaming from the house, and eventually it flies away, and then I finally decide, 6 more months pass, I'm still not divorced, and so I get the book out again. I'm really having problems getting a court date, and the main thing is you're supposed to do 8 hours of court-appointed mediation with retired judges to prove that you really do need to be divorced. And so I call up, so there's a spell in there about how to impress a judge and win a court case in your favor. And I think, listen, I've already had insects crawling on me. At this point, obviously, I will go to any lengths. So so you need the name of the judge. And I think, okay, that's fine. Oh, and you need bay leaves. And I'm like, well, I have those, and people have those in Connecticut. That's not something that they could get me on Law and Order for. And so I call up my attorney, and I said, listen, for the mediation next week, can you tell me the names of the 2 mediators? And she said, well, no, we don't usually release that information. Why do you want it? Well, it's my life that they're deciding, and I think that's only fair. And she's like, I think you're up to something. And I said, no, I pray deeply. And God wants to know who my mediators are. And it's the church and state thing, and I want it. So she says, okay, you're onto something, but I'll call you back. So she calls me back about an hour later, gives me the names of the people. I write them on the bay leaves, then you're supposed to put the bay leaves in the shoe so that the people that are determining your fate will be spending some quality time with you walking around in your shoes. It makes the most sense, it really does. But again, I get a little hung up on the etiquette, like should both judges go into one shoe? Should I put them both in the left shoe because I'm looking to leave my marriage? Should I put them in the right shoe because I'm right? Anyway, I put one in each shoe to hedge my bets. And I go into court the next week, and what I don't realize until then is this was shortly after September 11th, and we were within 40 miles of New York, and you were required to open your purse, shake everything out, and take your shoes off. So now I have a whole new etiquette problem, which I have the name of retired judges written on the soles of my feet and on the bay leaves. And they want me to take my shoes off. And so the only thing I could do, I had to take my shoes off, right? So the only thing I could really do is I had to do this weird little shuffle with my knees down, and I kind of slide my way through it because the leaves are sticking to the bottoms of my feet, not to the shoes, which was kind of the good news, but the bad news is one was falling off. So I managed to slide my way through, because at this point, okay, so now I have the names of judges on my feet, so they're going to handcuff me and they're going to send me away, and I'm going to be begging for the days of buying dried marigold blossoms. So I go all the way over, and I sit down to put my shoes back on in a least suspicious way as possible, and my attorney says, what did you do? And I said, nothing. Why? And she said, you did something. I said, well, I prayed, and God wanted me to pray, and it's my right to pray for things. And she said, well, here's the deal. The 2 judges that you had pulled out of the hat that were going to run your mediation were both single mothers, and one of them was a single mother that had put herself through law school with 2 children under the age of 5. And you had 0 chance of getting alimony, which is really what I wanted, was a small stipend to move far, far away. And, and they both called in sick this morning. So that's the bad news. If you want to confess to something, now is your turn to confess to whatever it is that you've done to those judges. And I'm like, no, I've done nothing. Who's going to admit? Yeah, listen, I got Baileys in my shoes, and apparently this magic stuff really works. So as it turned out, the 2 substitute judges that day were Mr. Rogers and Mary Poppins, and they could see that I really needed more money, because I did, and they could really They could see the inanity of my prior husband, who wanted me to continue living with him because he thought that that would work out really well for all of us involved. And at the end of the day, I ended up getting enough of a stipend that I could move far away from the East Coast all the way out here to the West Coast. And I moved to Seattle, and by sheer fluke, if you want to call it a fluke, I went to a singles party and met the love of my life, who I'm now still married to. The end.